today's toy spot, we are having a look at the DC Collectibles Batman Arkham Knight #1 Batman. A new line of figures that just got released in comic book stores. As soon as I saw it, definitely wanted to add this to the collection. This is a fantastic looking figure, even without getting him out of packaging. I've got to say, DC Collectibles is up in their game big time. If you were to take this figure and really even just packaging, the overall presentation of it, if you were to take this, comparing it to what they were releasing even like a year or two ago, they have really stepped up their game. The trade-off, unfortunately, though, is because they are stepping up their game, the price of these figures are a little bit more expensive. This Batman here, for example, cost spot, I think at the comic book store I went to, it was about $28. Ay, 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 ay. But still, though, I really appreciate the look of the packaging. It looks like he comes with a Batarang. It looks like he also comes with a grapple gun. Really excited about getting this guy opened up. On the side of the package, some grid artwork there of Batman. It's #1 from DC Collectibles. And then on the back, the other figures available are Batman Arkham Knight, there's Scarecrow, and Harley Quinn. The only figure I actually didn't see in the comic book store was Arkham Knight. He might actually be slated for a later release. It says sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios as well, the masters of statues that we've been seeing so many of. Very excited, like I said, to get this guy out of packaging. So without further ado, I'm going to do a lot less of this. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to get this opened up, and when we come back, we're going to get a better look at Arkham Knight's #1 Batman. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Before we have a look at Batman, let's quickly have a look at the accessories that come included with him. For starters, you get yourself a Batarang. I was a little worried taking the Batarang out of packaging because the Batarang felt like it was a harder plastic. It's good in some cases because it's not warped, but bad in cases where taking it out, I was very worried it was going to break off. It's not the first time. It was my first rodeo where I had a broken Batarang. So he comes with that. There's a little bit of almost like a metallic silver added to the edges there, giving that really smart look that it's partially sharp. It's not sharp though, but so you get a Batarang. Something that unfortunately got a little more warped. It looks like he gets like a grapple gun as well. It doesn't have any moving components to it. It's all one solid piece. But again, paint is really where these accessories excel. And lastly, the other last accessory that comes included with Batman is an extra hand. He only gets one. Surprisingly enough, he doesn't get two, but he only comes with one extra hand. I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what you're going to say. Spot, when are you going to make comment about the display stand? Yeah, he doesn't come with any sort of display stand. Once again, why oh why can we not get a display stand for these guys? I mean, for, again, a figure that's, what, 20, I paid, I think it was about $27, $28 for him. For that, you would hope that he could have come with a display stand. Sadly, though, he did not. I almost had a brief scare, and maybe a little bit of 411 for anyone that's picking up this figure. Be very careful on the ears. You would almost think, looking at this figure, that the ears are a softer, rubbery plastic. They are, and they're not. There is give to the ears, but you can only move the ears so much, and when I was pulling Batman out of the package, this one ear got considerably warped, almost to the point where I felt like it was going to break off. So a little food for thought. Do be careful taking this guy. Don't just rip him out of the clamshell, because he might actually end up having a broken ear, and that wouldn't help Batman at all. He'd still hear because he has his human ears, but wouldn't help him for the aesthetics of looking like a bat. The rest of his body is good. It seems like it's a little gloopy in the way of paint on some of the areas, but overall, loving the look of this Batman. It's funny that I would dislike the Arkham City Batman so much because just the design of it does not appeal to me. But then yet I can look at the Arkham Knight Batman and really like the look of the piece. He's more armored up, and I say more armored up than his comic book counterpart, but he truthfully looks less armored up than previous incarnations, previous video game incarnations of the Dark Knight. I like also the inclusion of this shiny black that's on some of the areas of the shoulders. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but areas such as his shoulder pads, not only are they gray, but there's almost this dotted black effect on these shoulder pads. It's a nice touch that really works well on the piece. From a distance, maybe it kind of looks like it's all mostly one similar enough gray, but again, when you start looking at areas on the legs, areas around the arms, there's that darker gray in there too that I really think just kind of gives it extra volume. It gives it oomph. His bat logo is a little more hidden, kind of just blends into this darker gunmetal that they put around his torso. But like again, aesthetically, the way he overall is designed, I really like the look of the piece. His utility belt is also a nice update. A little iffy when you start getting utility belts. Either they look too pouchy or they look more like something that there's no way he could house any of his accessories inside. This is kind of like a happy blend between the two. I could believe Batman could put stuff in his utility belt, but by the same token, I don't feel like he's overly pouchy, which sometimes gets conveyed when you look at utility belts. Face is good. Love the face. He shows his eyes, which is possibly one of the things I didn't like so much about the Arkham City Batman, is that he just looked too, he looked too human, if that made any sense. He looked less comic book, and he looked more realistic, and just the look didn't work for me. But somehow this has a blend of video game, realism, and also comic book, and somehow between the two, it's a happy medium. The choice in facial flesh color is also a nice touch as well. It looks real, like it doesn't look realistic, I understand that, but it kind of looks more like real flesh, even though the rest of the figure is so rooted in non-realistic design. The cape is also a nice touch. It kind of sits nicely at the bottom. It's not too long. I like that it's nice and slender. It doesn't like blow out and have, you know, sharp edges or little spikes sticking out. It's just a nice straight cape. This works for me. I love the straight aspect of the cape. And it's got texture to it aside from just the actual folds. There's like little kind of pointed pieces to the cape here, and then also inverting itself down here as well. Again, the cape looks really good. It feels more rubbery too than some of the capes we've seen in the past. It feels like it's got a little more flexibility. Not that you can really do much with it, but I do really like the cape. There's the back of Batman's, well, what would be underneath his cape, just to show you guys the armor of his, again, like it's armor, which normally, for those reasons, I shouldn't like, but seems to work well here on Batman. For your articulation, Batman does have a ball joint in the head. He has ball hinge socket shoulders, which a little more limited, being that his shoulder pad kind of gets in the way sometimes when you move it. When you move it this way, it doesn't do so much, but when you start turning it around, sometimes it gets caught, but not that you would have Batman's arm up that high. Nice swivel in the bicep. He has a single bend in the elbow. Or actually, excuse me, he does have a double bend. It's misleading because he's got the bicep as big as he does. He does technically have a double bend, but you can't really do it. Oh, there we go. You can do it to about there, which is a nice kind of pose that if you had like a thug right here, it could look like Batman just gave him like, you know, elbow magic. He also doesn't have a swivel in the gauntlet area, but he does have a nice swivel and hinge in the hand. Upper torso has that crunch, which is a nice touch. A little bit more limited in the swivel in the waist, but he does have that. And then the legs do have the hinge ball joint in the leg there. So it does hinge quite a bit out forward. And the utility belt does get in the way a bit, but at least it's rubbery. He has a double bend at the knee and a hinge and rotation in the foot. You can really get a lot going on with Batman here. A lot of interesting enough poses. Display stands certainly would have been helpful, but despite all that, he's just turned out to be a fantastic figure. A little bit of a warning though, do, again, be careful of his ears. I don't know, it just seems like, I feel like if they bend too much, which is almost to the point where I had them when I was trying to take this guy carefully out of packaging. If they bend too much, I worry that the ears could break off. Not break off, but stress enough that they would really eventually come off. The fantastic work on Batman here. DC Collectibles has upped their game. Loved the previous release Batman, which I guess was what, Arkham City's Batman. I thought that was done so well. But this takes that figure and it raises the bar even further. If you're a Batman fan, not only even just the video game, you know, interpretations of Batman, but if you're a fan of Batman just in general, do yourself a favor. Go to your local comic book store, say hello to the guy that works behind the counter. He's probably going to be eating a meatball sandwich. And go to the aisle and pick this guy up right away. You won't be disappointed. Today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the DC Collectibles Batman Arkham Knight Batman. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more videos heading your way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.